They said it as if it were a final judgment. My wife's parents looked straight at me over dinner and said, "You'll never be better than Mike, her ex." The words hit like knives, but I forced a laugh. "Then go ask him," I replied. That night, I lay awake. I knew I couldn't just let it go. Revenge had already begun forming in my head. The next morning, I started my plan. I dug into Mike's life, his job, his friends, even the events he attended. If they thought he was better, I would expose his flaws. I wanted to show them that their perfect Mike wasn't as perfect as they believed. At the same time, I began improving myself. I changed the way I dressed, carried myself, and spoke. I took courses, got better at my work, and became more respected in my community. Slowly, people began to see me differently. My wife noticed, but sometimes she seemed distant, as if something about my transformation made her uneasy. I didn't just want to compete with Mike. I wanted to crush the image her parents held of him. So, I arranged to meet him. Over coffee, I realized he was just an ordinary man. Charismatic, yes, but nothing special. That gave me confidence. I then began planting seeds. Whenever I mentioned Mike in front of her parents, I made sure to highlight his weaknesses. I'd say, "He's charming, but he tends to make promises he doesn't keep." Slowly, their certainty in him started to crack. My wife, however, watched me with unreadable eyes. I grew hungrier for their approval. Her father started respecting me more. Her mother began asking me for help. It felt good, almost addictive. But inside, I was changing. I was no longer fighting for love. I was fighting for pride. Finally, I invited her parents over for dinner. Calmly, I reminded them of all the years I had supported their daughter. Then I showed them a message from Mike that revealed his careless side. Their faces fell. I thought I had won. My wife even placed her hand on mine. For a moment, I believed everything was fixed. But victory came with a cost. After that night, my wife became quieter. She withdrew little by little, as if she didn't like the man I had become. One evening, I found a hotel receipt in my coat pocket, proof that she had been somewhere I didn't know about. My chest tightened with dread. When I confronted her, she admitted she had been confused, even tempted by memories of her past. She said she felt lonely in our marriage. I was shocked. I had done everything to prove myself, but I had forgotten to care for her heart. Instead of softening, I made things worse. I staged a public confrontation with Mike at a charity event, trying to expose him as a fraud. But he handled it gracefully, and I looked like a bitter man. The crowd whispered, my wife looked devastated, and I knew I had crossed the line. The fallout was brutal. Friends distanced themselves. My in-laws retreated in embarrassment. My wife left to stay with her sister, saying she needed space. The achievements I had worked for felt meaningless. I realized revenge had poisoned everything. Then came the cruelest blow. Her parents finally admitted they had been wrong to compare me to Mike. They even apologized. It should have been my moment of triumph. But when I looked at my wife, I saw only sadness in her eyes. She couldn't forget the way I had destroyed our peace. She told me calmly that she needed to leave. Not because she still loved Mike, but because she couldn't stay with a man who turned marriage into a battlefield for revenge. My apologies came too late. The divorce process was quiet but painful. Splitting the house, the furniture, even small things like who kept the photo albums, felt like ripping pieces of life apart. My in-laws stood by silently, perhaps guilty, perhaps satisfied. I couldn't tell anymore. One morning, she came by to collect the last of her belongings. She looked at me with clear, sad eyes. "You proved them wrong," she said softly. "But you didn't prove me right." Then she walked out, closing the door. That silence was the real end of my revenge. It left me with nothing but regret.